Hi, class. Welcome back to English 23, 23 once again. Britlit 2. Uh, Class, let's talk about where we are, what's happening. Things have been certainly different because of the pandemic, because of where we are in regards to the pandemic and the crisis. And so we're going to keep moving ahead, class, and remember that I'm here to help you. I have the course policies and calendar out, and I want to talk about where we are and certainly, class, what is happening. Um, we did, once again, a good couple weeks back, take care of the Romantic period. We had a fantastic discussion on that. I lectured in depth. We got through the overall aspect of the Romantic period. We talked about politics, we talked about history, we talked about literature, we talked about the base for the literature for poetry. Once again, that all happened within the Romantic period. Now, as also happened, class, last week, in fact, this week, or this past coming week, I had conferences. The last time that I had lectured, we had talked about, class, the one-on-one conferences that we were going to have and that we did have, that you showed up for, class. Class, if you didn't show up, once again, for the one-on-one in-class conferences for the epistolary paper and the oral presentation, you'll most probably want to drop the class, okay? If that happened where you blew that off, because it's going to be very challenging to take care of that now. I lectured in depth beforehand about what was going to happen during those conferences. I talked about the dates that we were going to have those conferences. We did have those conferences live. We had them live on the 5th from 1 to 2:30, so there was 90 minutes that day to have those conferences. And then we also had them for another 90 minutes, an hour and a half, on, once again, the 7th of October. In class, I got people signed up. I got them down for their presentations, their dates and their times, that once again, we've signed people up. And class, also during that time, I approved your epistolary paper. I discussed that with folks during that time. Many of you had questions, and we went through those questions. Class, once again, if there's a chance that you did not or you blew off those times for the one-on-one conferences, that puts you in a real rough situation, class. Once again, you need to do an epistolary paper. You need to do an oral presentation. I needed you to make a pitch for me, which so many of you did. I needed to once again sign you up. So many of you did. If you didn't do that or you blew that off, that's telling me, class, that you're going to drop the class. So if that's the case, just drop the class, and then once again, you'll be done with it. And that's okay. I've had some students say, Mr. Welsh, once again, I had a student write me today on a Sunday, Mr. Welsh, I've been having a lot of trouble lately. I haven't been able to do any work for my classes. I've had headaches. I've had earaches. I'm suffering from depression. Once again, what should I do? And once again, my answer was very, very simple. Once again, drop the class. Because we're coming up on soon here to the midterm, and he was asking if he could get caught up. It wasn't this class, it was another class, and I'm like, there's just no way to get caught up. Class, remember, once again, as we've talked about before, you want to set yourself up for success in college, not setting yourself up for failure. And once again, with this young man, I'm not judging him. I wouldn't even talk to him harshly. I just talk to him in the realities. Be good to yourself. We're in a national crisis. We're in a national pandemic. We still got a ways to go to get the vaccine. It is a tough time. It's a hard time to be doing online classes for some folks. Once again, I've enjoyed it a lot, but it's a new situation for me too, being an online professor. Once again, for him anyway, the situation was there's no way to get caught up at this time of the semester. Drop your class, drop the class, be good to yourself, take care of yourself, and then when he gets time, or if you're in that case too, to take it on another semester when you're ready to work, that'll be great. Okay, so class, once again on last week on Monday and Wednesday of last week, we had these in-depth conferences. Okay, they're fantastic. A lot of questions. I got students signed up for an oral presentation. I got students signed up for their epistolary papers. This Friday, class, will have a situation at the end of a live session with you. Have any questions in regard to that, you can ask me, and I'm here to help. But once again, class, if you blew those conferences off, it did not do them. Once again, I'm judging that you're going to drop the class. And if you do that, just go ahead and drop it, and that'll be okay. Now, so class, we've taken care of those. Those were fantastic. Let's talk about what will be coming up. On Friday, I am going to give you your midterm. And we're going to lecture today a lot about what's going to be on there. And class, then it will be a midterm that I'll give you a heads up for. You will type it up as best as you can. I'm going to prepare you. We will get you a study guide for that. We'll get you a study guide for the midterm. And then class, once again, your midterm will be due on the 21st. The 21st of October. Okay? So we will do that, and I will give you a study guide. Now, I realize, class, there's aspects that we haven't quite covered yet, but that's just part of where we are and what's happening during this crisis and pandemic. The good thing is you've been reading all along, so what I'd like to do today, class, is lecture about what's going to be important for the midterm. And I would really like to once again talk today about, and if we go back in our course policies and calendar, it's very important that we cover William Blake. On the 2nd, 9-2, we were supposed to deal with, or we're getting caught up with, once again, in September, William Blake, in your text, Songs of Experience, and once again, Songs of Innocence. So I'm going to talk about that today, class, once again, to help you in regards to your midterm that will be coming up, once again. And then I'll explain that when I send out the announcement in regards to it, and when I send out the prompt for the midterm. We'll have covered these aspects of it, so you will be in good shape. Okay. We'll give you that midterm on Friday, let you work on it over the weekend. It will be due. You will turn it in as a Microsoft Word attachment on the 21st. So, class, one of the things we want to deal with today is we're going to deal with William Blake. And William Blake is going to be very, very important for the midterm, because I don't want the midterm to be any surprises. I'm not going to, once again, do something to completely throw you off. We're going to cover this material. We're going to talk about the midterm, and we're going to talk about, once again, William Blake, class. Now, in our text here, we have a discussion of Blake that starts on 122, and it's good to have a good bit of background information in regards to him. What William Blake, it tells us on 122, called his spiritual life was as varied, free, and dramatic as his corporal life was simple, limited, and adventurous. So he's talking about, right from the beginning, we learn that, once again, Blake is living a spiritual life, or what he sees as a spiritual life, and the realm of the spirit being a springboard for his art and for his writing. His only formal education was in art, and at the age of 10 he entered a drawing school, and later he studied for a time at the School of the Royal Academy of the Arts. At 14, he entered apprenticeship for 7 years to a well-known engraver and began reading widely in his free time and trying his hand at poetry. So we see that he's self-taught, class, and he was driven to learn literature, to learn about writing, to once again engage in poetry himself. At 24, he married Catherine Boucher, the daughter of a market gardener. She was then illiterate, but Blake taught her to read and to help him in his engraving and printing. So he was a working, once again, printer, working with engraving and also painting himself. Painting himself. In the early and somewhat sentimentalized biographies, his wife is represented as an ideal wife for an unorthodox, once again, genius. Blake, however, must have been a trying domestic partner, and his vehement attacks on the torment caused by a possessive, jealous female will, which reached their heights in 1793 and remained prominent in his writings, for another decade, probably reflect a troubled period at home. And then once again, we learned that the couple was childless. So class, we're dealing with a man who is self-taught, is learning poetry, is a self-taught artist. He's working under an engraver and learning both the printing and the painting and engraving and the printing trade himself. On page 123, it lets us know that gradually Blake's thinking about history and his experience of life and suffering articulated themselves in the giant forms and their actions, which came to constitute a complex mythology. So Blake was creating through his own path, through his own searching in spirit. He was coming up with his own massive mythology to guide his own life. As Blake's mythical character Lee said, speaking for all imaginative artists, I must create a system or be enslaved by another man's. So, fantastic on the page of bottom of page 123, I must create a system or be enslaved by another man. So once again, as we've seen that people were doing in the Romantic period, some trying to find their own way, trying to find their place. So as with Blake, he could become truly, once again, himself. Truly an individual. And that is once again the goal for so many people, or can be for so many, never will. But once again, in college, that's also that goal. Once again, how do we create, once again, sometimes pedagogies, or how do we create, once again, these dictums or mythologies that personally we ourselves can follow. All right. These giant forms, mythical character, once again, I must create a system or be enslaved by another man's. The coherent but constantly altering and enlarging system composed the subject matter of Blake's, once again, his minor prophecies, completed by 1795, and then the major prophetic books on which he continued working on until 1820, once again. In his 60s, Blake gave up poetry to devote himself to pictorial art. So once again, in his mythology of his life, he is becoming, once again, a painter. He was continuing that journey into painting. In the course of his life, he produced hundreds of paintings and engravings, many of these illustrations for the work of others, including a representation of Chaucer's Canterbury Pilgrims, a superb set of designs for the Book of Job, in a series of illustrations of Dante in which he was hard at work when he died. At the time of his death, Blake was little known, once again, as an artist and almost entirely unknown as a poet. So, at the time of his death, he wasn't even known, or very, very little known, yet he continued this journey into art, into writing, into spirituality, creating this manifesto of how he wanted, once again, to live his life. And then over on page 125, it says, Blake's mythical premise or starting point is not transcendent God, but the universal man who is God and who incorporates the cosmos as well. So once again, the individual man being able to incarnate the cosmos, being able to incarnate and bring together aspects of God within himself or once again herself. Fascinating. So once again, the strength. Blake elsewhere described this founding image as the heaven-formed divine and names him Albion. Okay. The fall in this myth is not the fall of humanity away from God, but a falling apart of primal people, a fall into division. Okay. So once again, people falling away from what could be possibly the wholeness of God, the wholeness of spirit, the wholeness of the big picture of the cosmos, which is once again the inherent right of every man and woman that they can certainly achieve within themselves. Okay. The breakup of the all-inclusive universal man in Eden into exile parts is an evident series to identify the fall with the creation not only of man and of nature as we ordinarily know them, but also of a separate sky god who is alien from humanity. Universal man divides first into the four mighty ones who are the Zoas, the chief powers and component aspects of humanity, and these in turn divide sexually into male specters and female emancipations. So once again, he's talking about a cosmology of the whole. You know, what is once again going to be the whole. Thus, in the quoted passage, the unfallen state of Eden that people live in, the imaginative power separates into the form of, once again, the fallen world or creatures in the fallen world. In addition to Eden, there are three successfully lower states of being in the fallen world, which Blake calls the Lula, pastoral condition of easy and relaxed innocence without clash of contraries. Generation, the realm of common human experience, suffering and conflicting contraries. And Ulro, Blake's hell, the lowest state or limit of bleak rationality, tyranny, state, negation, and isolated false selfhood. Interesting. So once again, the cosmology of what is man in? What are the different states that men and women can once again live in? And so a lot of this stuff seems archaic and once again old, but it's still relevant to today, of people's own cosmologies, of thinking about, you know, where do I exist? Where do you exist? Where are we possibly in these places of the cosmological order of men and women, boys and girls? The fallen world moves through the cycles of its history, successfully approaching and falling away from redemption until, by the agency of the Redeemer, who is equaled with human imagination, we're on page 125, middle of the page, and is most potentially operative in the prophetic poet. It will culminate in an apocalypse in terms of his controlling image of the universal man, Blake describes this apocalypse as a return to the original undivided condition, his resurrection to unity. So, once again, the falling away of man, into what? Fragmentation and women. And then the hopeful, once again, coming back to the whole cosmological order. What is confusing to many readers is that Blake alternates this representation of the fall of man as a fragmentation of the one primal man into several parts with a different kind of representation in terms of two sharply opposed ways of seeing the universe. In the latter mode, the fall is a catastrophe. There is a catastrophic change that happens from imaginative insight, which sees the cosmos as unified and humanized. So the cosmos being a whole, the cosmological order of the world, of the planets, of spirit, of man within spirit, of woman, once again, within the spirit, the cosmological whole. In terms of this distinction, the apocalypse towards which Blake, as imaginative artist, strives unceasingly will enable men and women once again to envision all beings as being participant in the individual life that he calls the universal brotherhood of Eden. That is, a humanized world in which all individuals in familial union can feel at home. So once again, class, that's what we see. We see this once again, this striving for home, this striving for oneness within the cosmological order. Fascinating. So, once again, as it seems kind of arcane and archaic, it's still relevant today. You know, even right now with, say, so far, the state that we're in the world. You know, how can we get to a cosmological whole? How can we get to a whole for each of us? Okay, and even though there's aspects of our society right now that are in crisis because of this pandemic and social unrest, etc., etc., the question remains that Blake was talking about and we can take into our own world today is, how do we become whole? How do you become whole? How do I become whole? One of the ways is through A, of course, living, B, experiencing life, C, searching, D, studying, once again, literature, to contemplate these things. And for some people, too, also the cosmological whole. There's so many people nowadays who do things like meditation, prayer, meditation prayer, or, prayer through exercise, or, there's so many people nowadays doing yoga, once again. Yoga's fantastic. Everyone wants to do it for the mind, for the body, but searching for this wholeness. And even sometimes I think, class, that a person having challenges, because life is about challenges. The cosmological whole. What happens when if a person fails a class? Once again, that's why I always go real easy on students. I say, you know what? Stay in things for the long haul. You will not finish classes. It happened to me in college. I could lie and tell you that I didn't, but I did, But once again, I was looking for the wholeness of what I could. If I had a tough semester, if I had a bad class, if I didn't get on with a professor, I didn't do the work or I messed the work up. Class, I always knew that, you know what, I can get back in it. I can get back in it. There's always going to be, hopefully, we will get a vaccine. We will get through this pandemic. There will be another semester, you know. So that's why it always comes down to be good to yourself, class, once again. As Blake would have, we're all looking for this sometimes people look for the cosmological whole. We'll see that in the semester through things like what? Maybe drugs, once again, maybe alcohol, which puts people in these other states. Am I going to judge that? No. Once again, for some people, that's part of their path. Some people get sucked down by those things. Some people can never come out of it. Some people can come out of it. Some people can stay in that the rest of their life. Some people can just have fun with it and never get that pulled down to it. I've known a lot of people too, started out maybe looking for that cosmological whole of God, the godness and oneness, and then maybe get sidetracked. Once again, sidetracked in a way that, once again, you can't judge because no one knows anyone's path on that wholeness. That may happen towards the end of their lives, if at all, or maybe they're living it now and don't know. Okay. Class, over on page, very good. He talks about fascinating, and this sets up a segue into, on the bottom of page 125, Blake talking about all religions are one. The voice of one crying in the wilderness. The argument is the true method of knowledge is experiment. The true faculty of knowing must be faculty which experiences the faculty that I treat of. Okay. So interesting. There is then on page 126 is there is no natural religion. There's no natural religion A and B, and all religions being one in a sense, right? To find what? Transcendence, to find some sort of cosmological place that man and women individually are in and are part of the universal man, the universal woman, which you're all a part of, you know. What part are you going to play in it? How much, once again, are you going to strive for that, to realize the whole of the cosmos? You're there. We're there. We have to reach for it, class. He who sees the infinite in all things sees God, on 127. Once again, middle of the page. There is no natural religion. He who sees the infinite in all things sees God. He who sees the ratio only sees himself only. Therefore, God becomes as we are, that we may be as he is, right? So, how are we going to look for the infinite, right? How are we going to, and we do that. You do that. You do that. How do we do? Some people, once again, through religion. Maybe some people through prayer. Maybe some people through meditation. Maybe some people through exercise. Maybe some people start off seeking that situation with drugs. You know, some people back in the day, some of my students still tell me it's on the street, like LSD. Some people back in the day of my generation would say, you know, I met God on LSD. Okay. Don't let anybody ever tell you, or, you know, I'm not here to lecture anyone, LSD is a heavy drug. Once again, I've done a lot of research about it. Some people will take trips out and they'll never come back. Some people can take trips and come back. Okay, but it's heavy because you're dealing with hallucinogenics. It's heavy. I've known people personally who went out and never came back mentally with that stuff. But some people may start taking it for kicks, and there's been people who think that they can meet God on LSD. There's a lot of experiments nowadays on that. LSD and other hallucinogenics that they're back studying again in psychological means that once again God becomes as we are, that we may be as He is. It's what we're looking for. It's what Blake talks about, what Blake wanted. Once again, not to be fragmented, but be the whole. Okay. He who sees the infinite of all things sees God. The infinite of all things sees God. Can we see the infinite where we live here on the border? Yes. You know, I think so. At night, the stars, when we get out, the desert certainly is touched or kissed by infinity. Very, very good class. So we have this poem, The Echoing Green, and on page 126 and 128, I'm sorry, and 129, The Echoing Green, from the Songs of Innocence. The Songs of Innocence starts on 127. And that's what we're going to focus on for our midterm class. For, once again, our midterm. So we get into, and so I want you to be looking over those, class, in-depthly, looking over, once again, Blake's Songs of Innocence, songs of experience, songs of innocent songs of experience. So I want you to study those poems on class 128, 129. What do these poems say to you? I want you to certainly ask yourself that. You know, what do these poems say to you? What do they illuminate once again to you? And then right on through all these songs of innocence, class, songs of experience. How in your life can you or can't you relate to these poems? I want you to think about that. Do they say anything to you? The echoing green. The sun does arise on 121 and make happy the skies. The merry bells ring to welcome the spring. The skylark and thrush, the birds of the bush, sing louder around to the bells' cheerful sound, while our sports shall be seen on the echoing green, right? The echoing green. Class will stop there for a minute. Nature. Well, what happens when we get out in the green? What echoes? Which sounds? Page 129. Old John with little white hair just laugh away care, sitting under the oak among the old folk. They laugh at our play, and soon they will all say, such were the joys when we all, girls and boys, in our youth time were seen on the echoing green. Class, and finally, till the little ones weary no more can be merry, the sun does descend and our spirits have an end. Round the laps of their mothers, many sisters and brothers, like birds in their nest, are ready for rest, and sport no more seen on the darkening green. So once the whole cosmological order of life, you know, the simplicity in paradise, in nature, of youth, and then once again the end of youth with the darkening green. Okay? Why, we want to ask ourselves, is it echoing? Why is it echoing the green? The echo. Paradise, in nature, in youth. And then maybe at the end, the fall of youth, or the end of youth. the full life of man and woman in nature, possibly letting us know that in echoing green we can hit that cosmological order. We can hit that paradise of the wholeness of man and the simplicity of man, almost telling us to get back to some simplicity outside. Very good, class. Very, very good. So, very good. How can you relate? I want you to read these poems out loud within the songs of innocence, the songs of experience, the ones we have, once again, um, on your syllabus, class. Songs of innocence and songs of experience, right? Songs of experience. Class on, and I think, let's see, about 36 minutes into it today. I want you to pay particular attention to, let's look at once again, we'll look for a minute at, from the songs of experience, the introduction. Hear the voice of the bard on page 134, who present, past, and future sees, whose ears have heard the holy word that walked among the ancient trees. There we go again, songs of experience. The bard, the poet, walking among, once again, the ancient trees, outside, 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 in the wholeness of nature. Calling the lapsed soul and weeping in the evening dew, page 134, class, that might control the starry pole and fallen light renew. O earth, return, arise from out the dewy grass. Okay, earth, arise from the dewy grass. Once again, green, nature, grass. Night is worn and the morn rises from the slumberous mass. Okay, night's over. In the morning rises from the slumberous mass of nature, mass of people. Turn away no more. Why wilt thou turn away? The starry floor, the watery shore is given thee till the break of day. So once again, what is given to us freely in nature. What is given us freely in nature, and what is given us freely in nature. Certainly a paradise, some sort of connection to, as we were talking about, the cosmological order, some sort of connection to God or God consciousness or the whole class. Now, finally, on 141, in regards to your midterm, okay, I want you, class, to look at the poem London and study it, okay? Songs of Experience, London. So, as we talked about before in the Romantic period, we talked about this grasping for nature, for art, for life. At the same time, we went over the whole history of what was happening. Industrialization, tough time, tough work environments for a lot of people. People being ground down, once again, by life. People wanting to, some people move back to the agrarian or maybe find some peace in nature. People not being able to find peace in nature because they're just trying to survive and make a living sometimes in the harsh reality of the cities. So we're going to look at the poem London, and I want you to be thinking about this in regards to your midterm, because your midterm will be dealing with this class. London, page 141. Songs of Experience, William Blake. I wandered through each chartered street near where the chartered Thames does flow, and mark in every face I meet marks of weakness, marks of woe. In every cry of every man, in every infant's cry of fear, in every voice, in every band, the mind-forged manacles I hear. Okay, it's like the chains I hear. How the chimney sweepers cry, every blackening church appalls, and the hapless soldier's sigh runs in the blood down palace walls. But most through midnight streets I hear how the youthful harlot's curse blasts the newborn infant's tear and blights with plagues the marriage hearse. All right? So there's a lot going on there, class, that I want you to look at. I want you to look at all the footnotes on 1794. I want you to go in there and read it and annotate it and read it and think about it again. And what'll happen is the next time I lecture, I'll talk a little more about this. And I'll be certainly, towards the end of the week, I'll lecture more and then give you your questions for your midterm, and we'll be taking London apart, and then we'll talk about the preface as we move into this piece of writing for your midterm. So class, very good. We did a lot today. We did a lot certainly tonight. And stay calm, stay centered. Once again, I hope you and your family stay well. And the next time we talk, we'll talk a little more about Blake. We're certainly going to talk about your midterm the next time and what you'll need to do for me. And remember, class, that in regards to your midterm, we're going to make it simple because of this pandemic and crisis. But in regards to your midterm, I'm going to do another lecture. We'll keep it to the Romantic period, and we'll certainly keep it to William Blake. Songs of Innocence and Songs of Experience, and his, once again, cosmological order of the way he sees life and men and women within it, or the possibilities that men and women can have within it. Class, have once again a great day and evening. We'll see you next time. Stay strong, and that's it for now. Take care. Thank you.